Hi, I'm here and honored to be with legendary Brian Tracy. I'm very excited to be collaborating with Brian in this book called Winning Strategies for Success. My first exposure and first business mentoring program was Brian Tracy's The Psychology of Achievement in cassette format, believe it or not. Brian was the first mentor I had help me mold my mindset towards proper goal setting for success. Nice to meet you with you, Brian.
Thank you, Mauro. You too.
When you look back at the beginning of your consulting career, and when you hit the ceiling of complexity, what did you do to pivot from there?
Well, the most important principle, which I've taught, my book, which teaches these time management principles, is called Eat That Frog. And it sold 5 million copies in 55 languages. And people say, that book changed my life and made me rich. And what it focuses on is write down clearly what you need to do to achieve your most important goal, set priorities, and pick the most important thing that you could do, and do that, and do only that until it's complete. If you can do that habitually, if you can discipline yourself to identify your most important and valuable tasks, and do only that till it's done, until it gets into a rhythm, identify the most important task now, after you've done something else, and then work on that. If you can do that, that will help you more and develop more discipline, more character, more determination, more resolution. But the most wonderful thing of all is that task completion makes you feel good about yourself. And so if you focus on getting your most important task done, you feel powerful and you feel eager to get to your next most important task, and your next, and your next. Yeah. I used to teach re-engineering, and re-engineering, read all the books and tighten it all up, comes down to reducing steps, the number of steps in any process. And for example, what they would say that if you take any process from mailing a letter, there's, say, 10 steps. Starts off with one step and then somebody else gets involved and then delegated and then sent to a third party. So you have 10 steps. To reduce complexity, you need to reduce steps. And the first time through you do it, you can reduce 30% of the steps. You can eliminate them. Consolidate them, eliminate them, add them to others, and so on. And so all of simplicity, all of progress comes from simplification, making it simpler and simpler. Perfect example. What's the most successful company in the world right now? Probably Amazon. And Amazon used to be able to deliver a book at a discount within 7 days. Mm-hmm. Today, they deliver 3 million products worldwide, sometimes in the same day.
Right.
They have warehouses that are the size of football fields and 10,000 employees. And they have this efficiency that's beyond imagination. Nobody could ever touch them in our lifetimes. Who would want to? You and I, if I say, you should get this, you grab your phone, and in the middle of the conversation, you order it. And the joke is you have to then run to the door because there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So ceiling of complexity means the more steps there are, the more likelihood there is of additional cost, additional time, and additional expense. So your job is always to be reducing the amount of time, the amount of cost, and the amount of steps in the process so that you can pass those savings on to your customer, or so you can even get out of it altogether, because 70% of what seemed like a good idea when you started turns out not to be a good idea.
Right.
It seemed like a good idea, but once you get into it, you think, oh my God, it's they say that everything is more complicated than it appears from the outside.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's how you reduce the ceiling of complexity. Constantly think of reducing the number of steps in a process. So if I ask you, would you mail this letter for me? That's one step. I give you the letter, you mail the letter. But let's say you give it to someone else. Say, would you mail this letter? And that person says, yes, but I can't do it till tomorrow, so I'll give it to my wife. And my wife will do it. And so pretty soon, the letter doesn't get mailed for 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so reducing the number of steps in a process is absolutely essential for financial success. Yeah. Other than that, it just keeps growing. It keeps expanding like a blob in a horror movie,
right,
until it envelops the entire company. And you've got perfect example. When Elon Musk took over Twitter,
yes,
he found that they had been hiring people to keep them from working for their competitors. And so we fired 80% of the staff, $120,000, $200,000 a year people, fired 80% with zero decline in efficiency because they were all just redundant, and they kept hiring their friends who hired their friends who hired their friends who leased space, who took office buildings, who got warehouses. The thing became so complicated, we just fired them all without a single loss of efficiency. Think about that.
That's brilliant. That's actually really brilliant, because I didn't think of that aspect of the ceiling complexity. Yeah. Think about hiring help first instead of simplifying the process.
Yeah. Just because if you have too many people, the reason government doesn't work is because government is based on a perverse incentive system. Is you get paid based on the number of people you have working under you. And so if you have more people, then you get paid more and you get a bigger office. And then they have to have offices. And so all they think about all day long is where they are in the pecking order, which is decided by the number of people they have working in their department.
Right.
So all they think about all the time is hiring more people.
Right.
And there's nothing for them to do. So if you go into a government office, you'll find on average, 9 out of 10 people are just sitting there.
Yeah.
They're not working. They're shuffling papers. They're going for lunch. They're going for drinks after work. They're playing on their computers. And Anyway, so if you want to become wealthy, what I keep using the Bezos model, simplify the process so that you can do it faster and faster. And today, you order something on Tuesday afternoon, and then worry about, would you like it delivered between 8 and 10, 10 and 12, 12 and 2, and so on tomorrow?
Right.
I'll trade between 8 and 10, and beep, beep, it's there.
Yeah.
Just joke is you have to place the order and run to the door because there it is.
Right. So in my business, I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, business for sale people, right? And I'm trying to find, how do I better communicate my message to those folks so that they find me versus, just having to run into them. How did you do that in your business, where you were able to communicate a little bit better to those folks that you were looking for, who were your avatar?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I just finished writing a book called The 32 Unbreakable Laws of Money and Success. And they're based on a lifetime of experience. And some of the laws are laws of compound interest and the law of belief and law of correspondence. But one of the laws that is most important, and I came up to it as the last of the laws, is the law of reputation. And what determines the size of your business, the growth rate, the amount you charge, is what people say about you after they have done business with you. Mm-hmm. What is your reputation? And especially, what words do they use? And what words do you want them to use? And then what do you have to do in every customer interaction to be sure that afterwards they say, well, what was it like working with Mauro? And they said, well, it was fast, efficient, and paid for itself 5 times over in less than 30 days. I mean, you start with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey used to say. Yeah. You start with, this is what I want people to say, because your reputation in terms of getting results for your clients is the most important single thing you have in the whole world. And that's why you find that good business people, if you call them, they get back to you so fast your fingers burn. They don't wait a day or 2 days or 3 days, because everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's in a hurry. So that you want them to say that, if you deal with him, if you have a question, they'll get back to you in an instant. I've had people phone me from Europe and Asia that I sent them an email, and it can go anywhere, and they get back to me live or with an answer almost instantaneously. And you never forget that. Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting discovery. Only 2% of people are punctual. The others are sometimes punctual and sometimes not. But only 2% of people are punctual all the time. And everybody knows who they are. Mm-hmm. Because there's a thing that what they call it, but it's where you have one quality and people assume you have a whole lot of other qualities just because you have that one. So if you're punctual and you come on time or early for every meeting, or you deliver on time, then people assume that everything you do is fast, efficient, dependable, consistent, good quality, everything. Mm-hmm. If you're late on something that's important to the customer, they assume all the opposite.
Right.
And it's very hard to change them back.
Yeah.
And people don't know that. I remember I used to work for a gentleman. He's a lawyer. He had a law firm, but he had a reputation for being punctual. And they said you could set your watch. If you had a meeting with him, you could set your watch. He'd walk in the door on the second, basically. He was promoted, given senior positions, and eventually made the chancellor of one of the biggest universities in the province of British Columbia, Simon Fraser. And but he wasn't in education at all. But they just knew that if they put Arnold Heen, my friend, in charge of this university, it was going to be built, going to be financed, it was going to run on time, they were going to get the teachers and the students and everything else. And they did, because he was punctual.
It's so funny you say that. I actually went to that university. I graduated from that university.
Yeah, it's not complicated. Right. Your job and my job is to help people achieve their goals faster. That's it. So what are people's goals? As a consultant, the very first thing you need to do is you need to develop absolute clarity about what their real goals are.
Yes.
And, sometimes there's a goal, but there's a goal behind the goal. They say, I want to make more money. Why? Because I want to spend more time with my children when they're growing up. Well, that's the real goal, okay? The making the money is the way to get there.
Yeah.
And so you need to know with great clarity what their goals are, and then demonstrate that of all the people that you could accept advice from, you'll achieve your goals with me and my advice better, faster, cheaper, more predictably than with anybody else. Mm. That's the reputation that you want to have. Mm. Now, the other thing is, we're talking about reputation, is what people say about you. It's very hard to advertise a service. Say, hire me and you'll get these benefits and everything else. The only people who can advertise are people that have used your service and were really happy, and they will joyously tell other people. Right. People love to share their success experiences in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. That's why companies like Amazon and your firm get busier and busier at higher and higher rates. Yeah. I was joking before, my first paid speech was $150 for an evening talk to a construction society, and they were all drunk. He's a Canadian expression, shit-faced, but they were all drunk. So I'm giving this talk, and they're going blousy. And I prepared probably 8 hours because I really wanted to give a good talk and get a reputation and so on. Yeah. But I remember that later I was getting 100 times that amount for the same length of talk. But it's because I did tremendous work in preparation. Mm. So we say in our business, you can never over-prepare. Right. Did you ever see the program Suits on television? It's a series on called Suits. It's on. Oh, Suits. Yeah. No, yeah. I never watched that one. Yeah. Well, it's maybe the best, but it's one of the best. And there's a couple of lawyers in there. It's what they call a white shoe firm in downtown New York. Top lawyers, and there's one guy. His name's Harvey, and Harvey's sort of the central figure. And wherever Harvey goes to a meeting, he's a deal maker. He's a deal breaker. He's a client magnet. They ask him, why does he do it? Well, you follow him on a meeting with a tentative client who's not really interested. And then the client says, what about this? And Harvey is so well prepared. He said, well, the fact is that you invested in this company, and this company has done this and this, and right now you're struggling and so on. And if you don't turn this around quite quickly, you're going to be out of business. And so, I said, where do you get all this information? I said, I don't waste your time. I said, I do my homework before I come here. Yep. And he gets client after client. He closes every client. He generates. He's a money generation machine. But it's always because he's thoroughly prepared and knowledgeable. And it's interesting, if you're talking to a prospective client, everything, 90% of what you need to know is on the internet. Yeah. Just check them out on the internet, and you sound like a genius. Correct. Yeah. So I looked you up on the internet, and this is what it says on the internet. And what do you think about that? How do you feel about that? Is it accurate? And things like that. They're so impressed that you did your homework. Yes. Yeah. And that spreads. There's a word that I'm looking for. It spreads. But it's to the fact that you're competent, you're careful, you're well organized, you give good advice. But the most important of all is your reputation, is what people say about you.
Yeah. Thank you.
The most important thing in business is your unique selling proposition,
Yes.
your competitive advantage, what you bring to the table that nobody else can bring.
Right.
Customers are very simple. They're looking for a simple reason to choose you or to de-choose you. So therefore, you have to be crystal clear. You cannot hope that your customer is going to somehow figure out that you can benefit them. They have to know, and they have to tell their friends if you want to achieve this result. Now, I find that there's two major results that people in business want to accomplish. They want to make more money. I call this MMM. Is if ever you deviate too far from MMM, you're going to start to lose them. They're going to nod and smile and look at their watch and when will this be over? The second thing that people are interested in is making more sales. I call this SMS, sell more stuff. Mm-hmm. So you MMM by SMSing. Now your job is, those are going to represent 80 to 90% of the reasons people will use your services. It's because they're convinced that if they use your services, they'll sell more stuff, and they'll make more money.
Right.
And if they're not convinced of that, they will ask if they can think it over, which means bye-bye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what is your unique selling proposition? What is it that you bring that your competitors cannot offer?
Yeah. So I think it's the level of experience I've got as a previous entrepreneur in another space.
Yes.
So I spent 30 years in consumer packaged goods, where I had the opportunity to work for the multinational companies. A lot of them you probably recognize. I won't name them here, but
right.
A lot of the multinational companies. And then at some point in my career, I just decided, I had enough resources to be able to sustain myself for a while, because I knew that being an entrepreneur took a lot of cash first.
Yes.
Especially in the consumer packaged goods industry. So I dovetailed out into being a distributor. I naively went into this business knowing what I knew, however, didn't know how much it would take of my blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak,
yes,
and a lot of cash. And I did that. But through that process, I learned a ton. Because, and that's what I write about in the book, is basically at some point in time, the love of my life at the time, my wife, she decided that she didn't want to be on the journey with me. And so at that point, my cards were stacked way too high and too thin. And I mustered on for a couple more years after that. And then I found an angel who actually purchased my business from me.
Right.
After a few conversations, him and I got to know each other very well. And he basically said, I want you to fix my company. So he gave me carte blanche to go ahead and fix his company.
Wow.
So can you imagine the experience that I got from just doing that? I went through every single department in this organization, and they were all working in silos. And I put them all together so they were working as a unified unit.
Right.
In 4 years, we basically went from $17 million, almost $40 million in revenue, and we doubled the profits.
Wow.
So that experience alone allows me to do what I do better, because that gives me my competitive advantage when I speak about financial advising, financial planning. I not only speak from, the personal perspective, which is what everybody needs.
Yes.
I need to go to point, and you said end in mind, Stephen
Yes.
Covey. I do the same thing. Cradle to death and everything in between. But now we have an individual who may also be a business owner.
Yes.
So I put the two together, because at the end of the day, when you're working your business and you devote so much time on this business,
yes,
and you forget about yourself. And so when I sit with clients, it's interesting how their vision of retirement is, I'm going to sell the baby that I've spent so much time, all my blood, sweat, and tears and my money on, and they forgot about themselves, which is the golden rule. Don't forget about yourself, because why did you do this in the first place? Right? And so I bring them back to reality and try to manage both sides of the equation. So we talk about the personal side first, but then I also look at the business and go, okay, I've got some expertise in this. Let me help you do that too. Right? And so I help them, help them with their business as well.
If I was you and you asked me to be your mentor or consultant, how can I increase my business? I would say you need to have prospects to speak to. Yeah. But I would open up with when I got into this business, after years of experience, I had an opportunity to turn around my first company. They were doing $17 million in sales, and 4 years later, they're doing $40 million in sales and doubled their profits. And I'm very proud of that, and I think I could probably do something like that for you. That will get people's total attention. From then on, it's details.
Right.
And nobody gets emotional about the details. It's starting with the end in mind. It's talking about this is where we can end up if we work together. And they will say yes or no. If they say yes, it means that they'll be very happy to back away. Not 100%, but they'll be very happy to back away and give you freedom to do all these things. They may say, all right, well, if I were to accept your offer, what would you do? Very first thing I would do is bring everybody together and develop a strategic plan and get everybody singing off the same page of the hymn book. Mm-hmm. Because what I found is very often you have silos, which you said here, and people are working separately and independent from each other, right. And it's costing a fortune and it's not achieving your goals. So the first thing is get everybody in agreement and then increase the skill, ability, focus of each person. I mean, the things that you know what to do, yeah. but keep it very simple and keep focused on make more money, keep more money.
Yeah, that's right. Grow the top line, everything else gets better. You bet. Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate your time. I'm glad we wrote this book together.
Yes, well, we have the right ideas here. My two words are clarity and focus. Is be absolutely clear about what you're trying to accomplish and then be focused on those few things that you can do that make a huge difference rather than all the little stuff that really doesn't matter. Yeah. And your job is to help people walk the straight and narrow, if you like, so they're focusing on the things that are most important.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you, Brian, very much. If you liked what you heard and it resonated with you, please click the link below and buy our book, The Winning Strategies for Success, or you can book a one-on-one meeting with me. Thank you.